female friends as well. So I had 2 female friends, 2 male friends. I tended to get in trouble with the male friends. We did, not like something that's a felony or, but we enjoyed ourselves on many levels. It's funny because the 2 female friends, one of them ended up moving out to Colorado, and we just lost touch. The other one lives in southern Ohio on a farm and accomplished all that she ever said she wanted to accomplish. She told me she wanted to marry a man who loved her, live on a farm, and raise at least 3 children.
And she did it all?
And she did it all.
And is she happy?
At least I know of. As far as I know, yes. I've never heard that she isn't.
So were you shy? How would you characteristic of yourself?
I was probably more toward the quiet, shy type.
That kind of surprises me.
I think growing up, yeah. I had a lot going on. I just wasn't. When I look at what I do now and my opinions and everything, no, wasn't anything like this.
Would you consider yourself a troublemaker?
I would consider myself very capable of being a troublemaker. If you ask the school, the answer would be yes, she was.
Were you involved in extracurriculars, or was that even a big thing in your high school or middle school?
Our high school was so rural school. I played girls basketball, but I wasn't. The team could have gone without me, okay? How's that one? I don't think they'd know if I wasn't there. I was more involved, actually, I was more involved in academic types of things because I was on the student council. I was an officer in the student council. I headed up the literary magazine. Yeah, so I was more...
Okay.
I worked in the... I love the books. I worked in the library.
Well, that fits in with one of your hobbies. You probably enjoyed that.
I did.
Okay, so one of the last questions. Why did you choose special education?
I don't think anybody has really ever asked me that question. I believe that I chose special education because I always, in my classes, was paired up with somebody who was struggling. You can help them, Judy. It was almost like, well, you're not going to call them names. You're not going to be mean to them. You know how to do it. I don't have to worry about that. So, yeah, let's set you next to them and you can help them. I think that was the seed of the start. Then what happened to really get me to go into special ed was in college. I worked at a Christian school. I did volunteer. I also did practicum hours there. I did both. I think that happens to so many students. You start out maybe with a practicum experience and then it's like, oh gosh, I'm caught. And you proceed with volunteering. And that was a school that dealt primarily with students with disabilities.
And it was a Christian school?
And it was a Christian school.
That's
it was so unique. It was so unusual. Yeah. And I just said, this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
Awesome.
So,
are you happy with that?
Well, now, the important thing is I started out teaching, though. I graduated with a general ed teaching license because they didn't have a special education license at the school that I went.
Okay.
So I graduated with general ed, K through 8, and I also graduated with a psych minor.
Okay.
So then I started teaching gen ed, and our special ed teacher in the building, one of them, left the day before school started. She just quit. She hadn't prepared a room, she hadn't prepared a dang thing. My room was all prepared, including fish that had just been born to the fishes. So I had baby fish in the aquarium. My lesson plans for the first week were all done. Bulletin boards were all up. Everything was in place. The principal said, could you really take this special ed? You've got some background. We know you don't have a license. We'll help you get the license. But you know the kids, the students, because I had taught there the year before, actually 2 years before. And I said, oh, well, why not? I said, of course, this means I'm going to get prep time to get ready, and I'm going to get a bonus pay, right? And the principal said, no to either one, but I know you'll still do it. I smiled and said, yes, I will. So that's how
And they helped you get the licensure?
they helped me get, because I had taken some courses that already applied, and I'd had all my methods courses in gen ed at that time. And remember, 94, 142, and all the pieces of legislation didn't exist at that time. So it was a series of several courses, and I got my license, and knew that I was never going back to gen ed.
So you loved it?
I loved it. I loved the challenge. I loved the light bulb effect. I even liked it when the light bulb didn't come on, because then you shared that with me with what you're doing. It's like,
Yeah.
dang, I'll find a way.
Yes. Well, that's awesome. The last question, why did you choose to teach at Bowling Green State University? Why did you want to teach teachers like me?
I didn't set out to teach here.
Okay.
My whole teaching my whole teaching life wasn't planned. Some people go, oh yeah, I'm going to 4 years here and do the blah blah blah. I ended up coming here because when I had my first child, my husband and I decided I would be a stay-at-home mom, at least for a little bit. Well, then I ended up having major surgery, and then I ended up finding myself expecting again, and it was like, chaos. So I decided to stay home, had 2 children, then realized I can't do this. You could go with white gloves through the house, and it just wasn't enough for me. I needed more going in my life. So I went to a daycare and operated a daycare preschool for a couple of years until my boys got into school. Then I decided I was going back to teaching. Dang, I'm pregnant. So, okay, instead of doing that, I'll stay at the nursery daycare. And then had a falling out with them because I had for a long time been trying to get them to go to infants and toddlers, and they just wouldn't do it. And I said, I would like to bring my daughter here. I wouldn't show partiality. I mean, come on, you've all known me long enough to know that's not my cup of tea. And the people who were on the board were like, no, you might want to look for something else. And I said, okay, fine. And they said, what? And I said, no, I'm quitting. I'm giving you my notice here now tonight. I'll do it in writing, present it to you tomorrow. And they were just floored, but I did. I stepped away from it. And then, at the end of my pregnancy, I ran into the school director here for intervention, well, that time special education. And we were in a carry-out here in town, and he said, oh, Judy, he said, I want you. Your name came up the other day at a meeting. People who'd seen you in the classroom, we need you at BGSU. And I said, no, you don't. And he goes, come on. He said, don't be shy. He said, you can adjust to anything. So I stepped out from behind the aisle where we were, and he looked at me and he goes, maybe not this month. And I said, I'm 9 months pregnant. And he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm hungry." And so he stayed in touch with me and offered me supervision of student teachers. And so I started doing that. And then the next thing I knew, when I was ready to go back into the classroom, he said, "Come teach for us." He said, "It can be so much better." He said, "You can get a schedule, you don't have to be gone 5 days a week, you'll still be with the kids." I'm okay. So that's how I ended up here.
So how many years did you actually teach in the school?
In the public schools, 10 years.
Okay.
In preschool, 5? Yeah, 5. And then the rest of my time has been here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your culture and background with me.
You brought